Well, of course, it's not just the Labour Party that's facing a leadership battle. The Conservative Backbench Party's 1922 committee has announced today that its leadership election will take place by the 2nd of September. Boris Johnson is tipped to succeed David Cameron as the next Prime Minister and Tory leader, but there is speculation that Home Secretary Theresa May could be preparing to stand against the former Mayor of London. Well, for more on all of this, I'm now joined by Ben Harris-Quinney. He's Conservative counsellor and chairman of the think tank The Bow Group. Ben, evening to you. Boris Johnson must surely be the new Tory leader, or at least a Brexiteer like him. I mean, you can't have somebody like Theresa May, who, of course, was a staunch Remain campaigner.
I wouldn't say Theresa May was a staunch Remain campaigner, but certainly I agree with the sentiment that really the reason for the Prime Minister resigning, as he stated, was that he felt that his vision of Britain remaining in the European Union was not one the country wanted, and therefore a new leader of the Conservative Party, a new Prime Minister and a new government was required to take that view forward. It would be rather illogical if that person was also someone who supported the Remain camp, as David Cameron did.
Will it be Boris?
I mean, that's the most likely outcome at this point. I am very disappointed that the 1922 committee has offered such a short-run election, which means that members have very little time to get their payments up to date and all that sort of thing. But it also means that there isn't much time for the various candidates to set out their policy positions to the membership, and indeed that the parliamentary party will be the ones making the majority of the process decision, whittling down the candidates, which look like there'll be at least 6 or 7 at this point.
But Ben, they're being pushed into this by the EU, of course. The EU says there's no way they're going to start any negotiations or any exit as such from Europe until we've got a new leader.
Right, and that's true, but it's also true that we don't need to trigger Article 50 yet. That is something that David Cameron has been very clear on. That is something that the entire Leave campaign has been very clear on. And indeed, that's also something that Angela Merkel has indicated is not an issue of the pressing urgency that perhaps the statements of Jean-Claude Juncker immediately after the EU referendum vote would suggest. I see no problem with David Cameron remaining in post until the end of this year, and dealing with the immediate aftermath of Brexit and a new government coming in at the end of the year, and then triggering Article 50 and taking the 2-year-long process to remove us from the European Union.
Talking about that aftermath of the Brexit, it seems that many people are quite worried that Brexit supporters, including you, really have no clue what really the future holds of any real plan. Do you now have a slightly sickening feeling of regret over all of this?
No, I don't at all. But then I always took quite a medium to long-term view. And the reason that I felt the time was right for Britain to leave the European Union was because of the structural deficiencies that exist in the Eurozone and the very likely outcome over the next 5 years that the Eurozone will collapse. I've always said throughout the campaign, unlike perhaps some of the more prominent members, that we would face probably 18 months of economic slowdown as a result of leaving the European Union. But ultimately, over the next decade, it would prove to be a far better decision for the United Kingdom to be out of the European Union rather than close to the epicenter of collapse. On either side, there was great uncertainty. No one can predict the future. And I think the future of the European Union, with Britain in it or with Britain out of it, is deeply uncertain.
Ben Harris-Quinney, thank you very much indeed for joining us live here on RTUK.
Thank you.